Hello, and thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about Dante Director, and we will be here for the next hour or so. We have an entire presentation and total technical demo and overview of the actual product itself. So if you are able to join us for the full hour, that's great. If you are not able to join us for the full hour, that's okay. We will be recording this entire session and we will be sending out the recording afterward. So you can watch it at your leisure. You can share it with your colleagues. You can do whatever you need to do. We're happy to share as much as we can. So now, as you may know, we at Audinate do a lot of webcasts. And when we do a lot of webcasts here, we do record them and share them. And then also for our training webcasts do have the ability to earn Avixa and CTS credits for them. This webinar is not one of those. So you will not be earning CTS credits for this, but we are hoping that you will find this information informative and hopefully help you decide whether Dante Director is right for you and how you can organize and orchestrate your networks in the future. So hopefully that will help you in the future. If you have questions during the session, please ask them at any point in time. We may be able to answer them in real time. If we don't answer them in real time, we will be going back to all of the questions at the end and answering as many of them as we possibly can. So please enter your questions in the Q&A field, which should be at the bottom or in the panel that you're seeing in the Zoom information. So please go ahead and click that and enter any questions, and we will answer them whenever we possibly can. All right, so let's get started here. To start off, I wanted to introduce those of us who are presenting today. There are two of us. I am Jim Kidwell. I am the Principal Product Marketing Manager here at Audinate, and I work on all of our software products. So that would be Dante Director, Dante Domain Manager, Dante Controller, Dante Connect, all of those products that hopefully you're helping you with management and control of your Dante networks. And I'd also like to introduce our other presenter here, Michael Oland. Michael, would you like to take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Olin. I am a senior technical sales engineer with Audinate. I'm part of our solutions group. We focus more on the end user, the integrator, the software, the control and management portion of the platform. So I'm here to help, demo and walk through Dante Director.
The ability for your networks to connect to the cloud is something that people are starting to find a lot more value in because a lot of tools out there will help you better understand what's going on with your network. We know that a lot of people traditionally will say, okay, I have an AV network and I have an IT network, and the IT network is typically used by people who, may need to do a Zoom call like what we're doing right now, access the internet for research, do all sorts of things. But then there's a Navy network that is typically separate for a lot of people. So that can add a lot of value to a lot of people, but then it can also be sometimes challenging to utilize some of these other tools. All right, we'll give it just another couple of seconds here. Thank you for everybody who's responded so far. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Thank you for giving us your feedback. And then I'm going to share the results here so everybody can understand what we're looking at. So looks like we do have a number of people that are working on a converged network. We've seen even some very large networks that are working on a converged network. That would mean that both your AV over IP and the rest of your IT network are converged onto one network. And some have access to the internet for their AV over IP networks. And then there are some that are kind of in between. Some have internet access, some don't, and then some are willing to open it up if you found the right tools. And then it looks like still about a quarter of you are using air-gapped or standalone networks only. So one thing I will state about Dante Director, in its current form, it does require cloud access to be able to perform a lot of its functions. And you'll see that some of the benefits do come from that cloud access. So you would need to open up your network to be able to gain some of the benefits of Dante Director in its current state. In the future, we may be looking towards an on-premise version of Dante Director. But right now, the solution that we have for on-premise running on a server locally, that is Dante Domain Manager. So I'm going to stop sharing the results right now, and then we'll move on. Okay, so the first thing that we really need to understand when we're talking about Dante Director is the difference between an unmanaged versus a managed network. If you have a number of devices in say, a room right now, and you're connecting them all using Dante Controller and routing all of your signals, that is what we consider an unmanaged network. It doesn't mean that you're not actively saying, hey, I'm telling it where to go. It's just what we define that as an unmanaged network. When you add into the mix Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director, what that does is that says, okay, we are now controlling all of the devices within that instance. So all of the devices themselves would be enrolled into Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager. What that does is that provides a layer of security and control, but that also allows us to manipulate those devices on premise from a remote server, either Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director being the cloud-based version of the application itself. So you're seeing all of those control signals going up to the actual server itself on that right-hand box there. And that is either Dante Director or Dante Domain Manager. Now, the media streams themselves will always stay within the network and always stay between those devices themselves. So Dante Director is not a solution that provides signal path up to the cloud and down to other locations. There are other ways that we can do that. That is typically done with partnership with a cloud service provider like AWS or Google, and those are different solutions. So if you're looking for something like that, that would be more of a Dante Connect type of solution. And we can talk about that later. But right now, just so you understand, right now, all that's going up into the cloud or to your server itself is the control data. So there are three separate products that I've referenced earlier here. If you're working in a standard unmanaged network, you're going to say, hey, Dante Controller is the solution. That's typically what I'm going to use, and I'm only going to use that to manage all of my subscriptions between devices. I'm going to use that for diagnosis. There's a lot of interesting information that you can glean about your network directly from Dante Controller. When you add in a tool like Dante Director or Dante Domain Manager, that is used in addition to Dante Controller. So Dante Controller is the basic first step. It's something you can get directly from us free online. It's easy to get, and then we can you can set up your network with that. If you want to add that extra layers of security and control, that's when Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager come in. So the features that are available in Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager are very similar. Dante Domain Manager right now is our more mature product, and it runs on a hypervisor in your own data center. So if you have the ability to set up a hypervisor in your own data center and run Dante Domain Manager locally, that is the solution for all of your air-gapped networks. If you are unable, for whatever situation, say you're running in a highly secure environment, say you're working for the military and the Pentagon, whatever, then Dante Domain Manager is the current solution for you because that does not require any cloud access to function properly. Dante Director does add layers of additional features, which we'll go over right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So the remote management capabilities of Dante Director are something that people are finding really valuable here. That means that you can sit at home and have access to the control data and use Dante Controller even on your remote networks. We'll show you exactly how that functions. That's something that is a great value because of the cloud connectivity of that. You also get the ability to have your server automatically updated and the features automatically added when you do that. So you don't need to manage the server itself like you would with a Dante Domain Manager installation. With Dante Director, you do get user access control and security. So if you're in an environment where you have a lot of, for example, it's a higher ed environment and you have a lot of students who can just plug into random ports on the walls, and then they may have Dante controller on a standard network because of the ease of use of Dante. Um, Most people could go in and just change that if they wanted to. With Dante Director or Dante Domain Manager, that enables you to say no. Only people who are authenticating to the server can have access. So that says, you know what? I don't want to have just any random changes happening. We want to make sure that our rooms are set up and secure and that people aren't accessing those devices and changing them. And you're going to be just fine. So that's what Dante Director adds. It also adds network monitoring, event logging, notifications when devices go offline. So if you have a large number of devices that you're managing and monitoring, and something dies, and you can say, "Okay, darn it, that thing went out. I got to go figure out what's going on." You're going to get an email that you can set up that says, "Hey, go check out that device, see what's going on." You also get an additional layer of API integration. So if you want to build custom control surfaces, custom monitoring tools, connect it into other applications such as, maybe a ticketing system like ServiceNow, things like that. We do have the ability to have API integrations with the server itself because it knows where everything is, it knows the states of everything, and then you can take the information that's coming directly out of the actual interface itself and plumb that into other things. So if you have, say, a single pane of glass that you're trying to build for your IT management system, Dante Director can be a part of that. Okay, so now we talked to a number of you about a number of you were saying, hey, we don't have the ability to move things forward, or we're a little bit nervous about that. So security is a big deal when you're saying, I want to open up my network to the cloud, and you don't want just random people coming in. There are ways that you can secure your network to ensure that only the right people have access and only the right tools have access to your particular network. There are firewall settings that you can set up, and there are ports that you can restrict things down to. We've written a white paper that talks specifically about this. So if you're the person that's implementing it, you can use this as a guide. If you have someone else that you need to convince that, hey, I would like to use this tool, and these are the settings that would be required to do that safely. This white paper talks specifically about that and how it can do that easily. So if there are people in your organization who are nervous about that, or maybe if it's you yourself, sit down and just take a moment to look through this, and we can also help answer some of your questions here once we go into the demo and start talking about it. But this white paper is free on our website, and you can get that from getdante.com. If you go onto the director page, it's right there. I'll show you the website later. I did mention earlier about the API access. So the API basically it's a GraphQL API. If you've ever used GraphQL APIs, they're very easy to use. It does enable you to provide connections to multiple different existing technologies out there. We do have Crustron and AMX products that are available from our website. You can download those and implement those in your current installation. What's probably the easiest that we're seeing a lot of growth in is Bitfocus Companion. So if you've ever used Bitfocus Companion, we have an integration there that we've published on their open resource library that Michael will show you in a minute about how that functions. And you just get a standard API key from us, and then you can build whatever type of control surfaces you want. And the cool thing is that these Stream Decks that Bitfocus Companion runs on, they're very affordable and easy to get into. So if you want to build a simplified interface for your organization, for whatever room you might need to deal with, if you want to just have the ability to switch channels on a button push, this is really, really easy to do. And as I said, also the integration for other monitoring tools such as AVI SPL's Symphony or Domots, perhaps, you can easily integrate data coming from Dante Director into those other systems to implement what you might call a single pane of glass. So the presentation portion of this is thankfully over. I'm sure you're ready to get on to the good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about how you can actually implement that. And Michael, handing it off to you so you can share the actual application itself and all the good stuff.
Okay. So I've gone ahead and logged into Director as a member of this demo integrator account. When I log in, the first thing I can do is I can take a look and see the status of all of my devices and all of my sites. And actually, if you watch over time, this is going to update in real time as devices come in and out of issues. In this particular case, see, we just had an update right there. I've got 56 devices that are okay. I've got two that are in error and two that are in warning. I can also look at my sites to figure out just that quick glance to figure out what kind of shape am I in? What do I need to deal with? What's going to basically cause my day to be fun or whether it's going to be a good day or not. From here, I can drill into the sites specifically. So we've got 9 sites here. You can see these here on the bottom. They're all good. This one's good, but we've got some that have issues. So obviously, I'm going to want to drill in, trying to decide what's going on. So I'll click on one of them, and I can see here I've got one device that has latency issues. So now I need to figure out what's going on. So I can actually click on the device and I can see some of what's been going on. So you can see over time we've had latency issues with this specific device. This is the type of thing I'm going to want to get a tech to run out and say, okay, let's try and figure out what's going on. But at least now I have information. So as opposed to just pulling up controller and seeing I've got an issue, but I don't know what's going on, this gives us some real good information. I can even try and reboot the device from here if need be, if just a simple reboot works. I have a lot of ability to look and see what's going on and what's been going on. So again, the overview is great. Here, I can see all of the individual sites and I can pick the different sites that I want to look at. I'm going to jump into this one for a minute. Once I'm in the site itself, then I can again see that same information that I saw on the larger on a much smaller scale specific to this site. So all devices are online, no clocking issues, no subscription issues, no latency issues. Everything is good.
Let's step back here for just a second and
Sure.
state, like where are all of these?
Yes,
Where
that is actually a good point. So I've got devices. This account is managing devices in Australia, in the UK, and this one's actually in France. I'm in the DC area. So to Jim's point, that is one of my favorite things about this as an integrator or as a person managing this. I now can control devices all in my building or all over the world.
And one of the great things about it is, yes, you can connect to remote sites, but you can also take a large network. So if you have a network of 100 different devices and they're spread across an entire WAN or a network, and you want to manage all of those sites in discrete clocking groups, you can break up a large network into discrete clocking groups. So every time you create what's called a site, or the equivalent would be in Dante Domain Manager, a domain, that's a discrete clocking group for all of those devices. So it provides an additional layer of reliability. And it also says, every time you plug in a new device, it's not going to have to run the best master clock algorithm and figure out who's going to come out ranking in the top leader of the clock.
And as far as practicals, I'm working with a couple of universities who have done just that. They had issues with devices showing up and taking overclock. They've used this to separate their network down into manageable sites. So this is actually a practical thing I've seen in the field. Anything else, shall I, before I move on, Jim, or does that cover
Go
what you
on,
want?
sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So, all right, from here, then I can drop in and look at the individual devices. So in this particular case, I've got high importance, normal, and low importance, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But at this point, I can take a look and see all of the devices that I've got in line. I can click on them. I can see the current information about it, current firmware, when it was last connected, how long it's been there. I can track some basic information. So here's the site. I can give information like here's the location, a description, some comments. If I want to use this as like just a way of tracking my devices, You can also see the IP address. I actually use this type of thing a fair amount. I've got enough devices here. I don't always remember what the IP address is, or if it comes up something new, I can find it. I can just immediately see where it is and just do some basic management. One of my other favorite features, if I go to the transmit, I can actually see, and this works on receive as well, which I'll show you. I can actually see signal presence. So the same thing that you see in Dante Controller, where you see this channel is actually transmitting audio. I can see it from here within Dante Director as well. And you'll see this sort of rolling through. So if I go back to devices, I can pick my DSP. I can come over here to the receive. I can also see signal presence. Like these all have signal coming into them. I can see the name and I can see status. This is actually showing encryption, which is something I don't think, Jim, you didn't specifically talk about, right?
We haven't
Uh,
talked about.
Okay. So it is something we have coming. It's out. We're just waiting on our manufacturers. Here's how you would actually see it from within Director. Um, from here, then I can also see a miniature graph of latency over time. I can even click on that and I can see here's what the latency has been for the past up to 30 days. And this is really good if you're in an issue where you see a device that periodically causes problems or has periodic latency. You can actually drill into this and say, okay, I know there was an issue right around this time frame. Okay, so it specifically happened at 2:36 on the 5th. Okay, now that I have it, now that I'm armed with that information, have that information, then I can go ahead and start looking to find out why it went wrong. So it really is useful to give you more information and try to determine what's been happening and why.
So one of the things that I find really helpful about that whole latency chart is that 30-day window is really great. A lot of if you're trying to do some sort of diagnosis just with Dante controller, you're not going to really have the ability to do that. The way that people have tried to do that is have a local machine running and it have Dante controller open. But what's going to happen with that machine is it's going to have to be updated. Windows is going to have to update, or if you're running a Mac, that Mac will have to update, and you're going to want to make sure that that's secure. This is always monitoring all of your devices without
Yep.
the additional cost of having a device sitting on premise to do that. And then you can also, get remote information all about all of your devices on site.
Absolutely. And I'm working with a couple of customers right now. They said that is one of their favorite things is being able to see over time what's been going on to help identify when the issues are not just there was an issue at some point and we don't know when. Now we can actually find out exactly when it happened just simply by going in and looking at it.
Yep.
So in addition to that, it will track within a given site everything that's happened over time. This is one of my other favorite features. I've got many, but this is absolutely one of my favorite to be able to say, okay, here's what's happened over time for all of this. So you can see a lot of this is just showing latency issues because we've got this item that's coming in and out, but I can actually go in and pick, I think, let's see if I've got any that apply to me. Yes, I made some subscription changes yesterday on these. So I can actually figure out who did what, where, when, and how. So instead of going, well, I know somebody made a subscription change somewhere. I don't know who, I don't know how. Now you can look in and figure out who did it. So you can pull them aside and say, okay, what happened? Why did you do this? Let's not do this. Things along those lines. So it really is useful having all of that information that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, the log is really verbose, and if you've used it in the past, we have added log filtering there, so you can filter by any category, and then you can also filter by importance. Well, that's one of the things that we talked about earlier about the ability to rank things in importance. Could you show us the importance rankings of devices?
Absolutely. And somebody was asking just that same question saying, hey, can you dismiss connectivity issues if they're not there? And absolutely you can. So I'm actually going to go ahead and switch to another site because I want to show something there as well. So here I'm in a like a house of worship type setup. So I've got a mixer. This is my most important. So I'm going to drag it up here and say, okay, this is most important. And where that is useful is when I come down to my hang on. I'm suddenly drawing. Gosh, hang on. Sorry, I am having a moment.
Believe
Um,
it. Your settings.
Yeah, I'm looking for my notification settings, and believe me, my brain just short-circuited. Um, oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. This is absolutely embarrassing. I think
Believe.
it's here. There it is. Sorry. I apologize, guys. Here, this is where you can do it. So when you go into your user settings, you can say, hey, let me know when a device in these sites of high importance go offline. So that gives you that notification to say, okay, here's something went wrong and let you know. So it gives you that proactive monitoring and tracking capabilities that really, if you don't have something like this, you're more reacting to say, hey, somebody's telling me something's not right. Well, no, here, I can know when that thing goes offline.
And right now we just have SMTP notifications, so they're just email notifications that are based on user preferences. Eventually, we're working on webhooks. So if you're wanting to have a webhook, that will be available as an integration option in the future, in addition to the API integrations.
And so to the question of low importance, so I can also say a device is of low importance, which basically says, hey, I don't need to know to the person's question if I've got, say, a DVS that I bring on or offline on a regular basis, or like an AVO that I only pull out periodically. I can put it as low importance, and then I'm just not going to find out. I'm not going to be notified whether it's gone offline or not. So it's not constantly spamming you with, hey, online, offline, online, offline. I've got a device here that, it fires up and it shuts down and it goes to sleep and comes back up. And this helps me avoid constantly getting those notifications of, hey, that DVS system went up and went offline and so on and so
It
forth. So,
also, when you rank things as low importance, it also won't affect the status of your actual site itself. So when you're looking at a high level overview of all of your sites, yeah, it won't change any of the statuses there, and it'll still look like everything is a-okay if you set something as low importance.
all right. That answered that question. I think we can move on. So within a given site, of course, you can then control who has access. I know Jim talked about this. So if you have, like, again, we've got locations in Australia, we've got them in the UK, and we've got them in France. You might not want everybody in Australia to control the UK and vice versa. This access control here allows you to say, okay, here's who has access. And there's two levels. So you've got administrators. These are all of these people are all people who can look at all of the sites. And then you can restrict and say only these people have access to this particular site. So again, it gives you that granular level of control to say, I don't necessarily want somebody who's managing my UK office to be able to manage that in the Australia office and vice versa. So gives you that ability.
To add a little context about the users here too, this controls the ability to log into Dante Director, but it also controls the ability to manage sites on premise too. So you have to log in to Dante Controller to actually see and manage the devices on location, even when you're plugged in to the actual subnet itself.
Right. Exactly. So, for example, if I were to pull up Dante Controller right now, and I was on one of those sites, I would see nothing. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up and just show you. I actually have devices on the network here. They're in a different site, but because I'm not logged in, I don't see anything. So users are good for that. So in addition, you can do some basic clocking. So in this particular case, if we've got devices that are on separate subnets, by default, Dante does not communicate over those subnets. This does allow you to do that. So if you'll see, we've got devices that are actually in two separate subnets. I've got the 26 and the 24 here. And because I've gone through and done some configuration, this one is leading everything, and this is what we call a clocking group. It's leading everything in the site, and then it's sending clock over to this device over on the other subnet, and that's how they're able to sync up. So if I take, so here's my DAW, I can set up subscriptions between it and the mixer, even though they're in separate subnets. And Director ensures that the communication happens between them. So now let's go ahead and show you what it would look like to bring up Dante Controller. Again, I've showed you Controller. I showed you it didn't have anything. If I hit Open Dante Controller here, it's going to fire it up. It's going to make sure I logged in, and you'll see something new. You may not have seen this before, this domain option. This is where you pick the sites. We use two different terms depending on whether you were using Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director. So when this says domain, you can think site. At this point, now I can see all of these devices that are on this site. And again, these devices are actually in the UK. They're not here. I'm not on the same network. I can't communicate with them directly as I could a device plugged into my network. But because we've got Director set up, I can actually communicate with them via Director all the way over on a completely different continent. So I can do everything that I would through standard Dante controller. I can look at my subscriptions. I can set subscriptions, make changes. I can double click on the device, pull up additional information. Again, sort of that mirror of what you would see in Director and pretty much what you're used to seeing in Dante controller locally. I can see the status, again, the IP address, device configuration, all of the same configuration settings that you're used to before. They're all available here only after I log in.
And it's remote too, which is great. One thing that I will point out is that when you clicked that login to Dante Controller, it automatically logged you in. So you don't have to remember your username and password or anything. It's going to automatically log you in when you're clicking the button in Dante Director, and it logs you in directly into Dante Controller.
Yep. So that is controller at a, how controller interacts with this. The next thing I want to show you is what the integration would look like. So I have a virtual Bitfocus companion here with a virtual set of buttons. What you don't see is right over here is my actual Stream Deck. And if I were to click this button to go from DAW, what you will see here is I've currently got 8 channels subscribed to my mixer from the stage box. It's going to unsubscribe 4 and it's going to subscribe 4 channels to the DAW. So if I go ahead and click that button, you'll see that it updates. Now this changes have been made, and you'll notice that the Bitfocus companion integration can work both ways. So not only can it issue the changes, it can actually track what's going on and allow for things like updating this button to show that the change has actually been made. And then I can click and run it backwards.
So now it's important to note that this is like running on his local machine in the DC area, and it's sending signals from there all the way over to the UK and managing all of that, and then sending the data back to his version of Dante controller and saying, yes, the signals have been routed. So he's controlling a network that's running in the UK, and you can build a control interface anywhere to do that. So if you have a master control interface you want to build somewhere where you can set everything up and control many different remote sites, you can do that on a single Stream Deck, or even any other type of integration that you would want to build for API integrations.
Correct. And as far as setting that up, it's just a matter of going in here to your settings and creating an API key. And then for those of you who are familiar with Bitfocus Companion, here's my actual setup. You can see I'm using the Audinate Dante plugin. Here's the URL. Here's the key. And I expect every one of you to ignore the fact that you can see my key there. So, but once I have that, then I can set it up. And then the buttons themselves, it's just a matter of saying, okay, I want to have this received device, and here are the 8 channels that I want to have mapped. And then the feedback, it's okay, if the Sanctuary mixer is subscribed to this particular item, go ahead and make the color change. So that's how you set that up. Jim, is there anything I'm forgetting? I think we've covered it all, but was there something else that we should show real quick? If not, I know there's some questions that are popping up as well.
Yeah, hopefully you've been entering all of your questions. If you have other questions, please go ahead and enter them now. I think we've covered a lot of this. I think the main benefits here is that you're going to get that level of organization that you may not have had otherwise, and then also the ability to kind of drill in and manage your Dante network. Now, if you're seeing issues with a particular device itself, so like say for example, if we were in that latency chart that we were looking at earlier, and you're seeing latency issues about a particular device itself. So if we're looking at that, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an issue with the Dante device itself. That may be a network issue. Now, we have people that are using Dante Director right now. We have someone who's using it in a post-production house, and they manage 2 different locations, one in London and one in LA. And they saw some issues that were happening on a regular basis in one particular location. Well, it wasn't the device itself that was having issues. It was one guy who was every day uploading like 8 terabytes worth of stuff using their network, and it was basically crashing everything. So the entire network was having issues at that time, and they were able to first see it in their AV network because they were running on a converged network. They're like, okay, what's going on? And then they were able to trace it down and exactly why that was happening. So they figured out that okay, this guy needs to do it at a better time, even though he was doing that. You know, then you're not going to interrupt the rest of the entire internet because you're not taking up all of our bandwidth with your upload. So
Yep.
just a note about that. You know, using your Dante devices as kind of a network sniffing tool. All right.
So
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, but what I think will happen is as we go through the questions, there's a chance that something will come up, and I might want to answer it by actually showing it on the screen. So I would suggest at this point we switch over to the questions.
Okay, so let's see. We have multiple different questions. First one is, do you have an EU cloud solution? Okay, so right now the Dante Director service itself is hosted in AWS and it's hosted in the United States. So we are in the future looking to deploy multiple different versions around the globe, but right now the data itself is hosted in the United States. So if that is an issue, we just know that we will be working toward having multiple different servers around the world. But right now, as the service grows, we're just keeping it in one location because it's honestly easier to manage and develop one before we deploy to three. One other thing that I will note is that you can have a free trial of Dante Director. All you need to do is go to getdante.com and go into the Director page and click Start a free trial. As of right now, you will need to enter a credit card to start a trial, but very soon, within the next coming weeks, we're going to be removing that credit card requirement. So you can go in and play around with it without even entering a credit card or anything. Because honestly, we just want you to be in there and trying it out and seeing if this works for you. We want you to be enrolling devices, managing them, seeing what your network looks like within Director itself, getting all the benefit of all of the latency charts and all of the information that you can have. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sending out an email within the coming weeks about when that actually is turned on. We're just, you know, making sure we're doing final testing that works just fine. Um, okay.
I've seen a couple questions specifically around AWS and like the AWS outage. Do you want to address that? And then there's
Yeah,
one
sure.
thing I kind of
So
want to talk about as well.
as far as I understand that that was a race condition that was because they had multiple things happening within AWS East in the United States, and there was a race condition where something was trying to make an update, and then the next service wasn't waiting for it, and then it was spawning new services over and over and over, and then it kind of crashed AWS. So that didn't just crash, you know, one service, that crashed multiple different services, and that was all run through AWS East. That did not affect us at all because we're hosted in AWS West. So honestly, the services themselves are very, very reliable. And when you see these outages, they're going to be, you know, big newsmakers because it affects huge services. Like Netflix was down because Netflix runs on AWS and it runs in AWS East. But nonetheless, we were just fine. Everything was working great. There are status pages that you can access to know what's going on with Dante Director. Is Dante Director up? And we have, I believe it's a 98, 99% uptime right now. The service is still relatively new, so we've been running it for a couple of years now. One thing you may note, if you've come to some of our previous webcasts, you may note that everything looks different. And that is actually kind of a good thing because we're constantly working on getting user feedback and understanding what works for people and what doesn't. And people said, hey, I want dark mode. So just like we did with Dante Controller, we've implemented dark mode. We've also implemented just general quality of life things. So things are spaced better here. You can see things better on the screen. We're working with users to build out more professional type solutions too. So the grouping of devices into sites and rooms and to manage very, very, very large installs with Dante Director. Right now, you can start with as few as 20 devices in Dante Director, but technically this will scale to thousands and thousands and thousands of devices. Dante Domain Manager has a tops out at, I believe, 1,020 devices. I think that's the maximum that you can put into Dante Domain Manager. But Dante Director, because it's a cloud service and it grows dynamically and it scales, you should be able to add many thousands of devices without any issue at all, because it all is scaling using cloud services and cloud service power. So that's kind of the benefit of going with a SaaS. I know that SaaS can be kind of something that people are like, oh, I'm nervous about having a subscription or something moving, that will have this level of subscription every month. But the benefits you get from it are you don't have to maintain your own server. You get dynamic updates. You get somebody who's monitoring it dynamically all the time. So if there are issues going on with a particular site itself, we've seen our devs. I've seen our devs say, "Hey, something's going on over here. Can we reach out to those guys?" And so that we're still at that level of service within the Dante Director SaaS community. So we're
If
happy.
I can jump in real
Yeah.
quick too, I wanted to circle back around to the AWS outage because there was more specific question of is there a backup? The thing to remember is in the case of an outage, audio will still transfer. So even if you have a temporary network outage, like internet outage, audio and video still transfer. It's just the control elements that you lose access to temporarily. So it's not like director goes down and suddenly I have no ability to communicate or no ability to pass audio whatsoever. It really is limited to that particular control element. So I did just want to address that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Dante, the way that it functions is doesn't change. The subscription is all maintained by the receiver. So the receivers are always saying, I'm expecting a signal from here. And if director goes out for whatever reason, say the power outages in the entire Western United States and we don't have power, you know, all your devices are still going to work fine as long as you're not in the Western United States and don't have power. So you should be totally fine. All your subscriptions will stay as they are. You won't even notice unless you try to log into Dante Director and see what's going on, or log into Dante Controller, because you would still need to have that authentication that's happening. So ideally, you wouldn't even notice. All right. Let's see. I may have missed it, but does Director need a controller running on a local network? So, the question kind of alludes to whether you need to have something running locally or a machine running locally. No, you do not need a machine running locally all the time to have Director function. Director is its own thing. You don't need anything else to actually make it function. Now, there's one caveat. When you're enrolling devices, you do actually need to be plugged into the subnet and enroll devices into Director when you're plugged into the subnet. But that's the only time that you're going to need to do that. And we're even working on solutions to maybe try to get rid of that requirement as well, so you can enroll devices even without that. But right now, that's the one and only time you're going to need to be plugged into the local network using Dante Controller locally. You will still have the ability to use Dante Controller for all of the functions that aren't currently built into Dante Director, but you can do that all remotely. So wherever you are, you can just log in, see what's going on, use both Director and Dante Controller simultaneously to work on your network. And that all is, enabled remotely by Dante Director. All right. If less than 20 devices, is it worth it to have Dante Director? Well, that's up to you. The minimum is basically 20 devices, and it basically equates to $1 per device per month. So that's $20. So it's what value are you getting out of the actual service itself? I would say yes, it's valuable enough to actually do that, to have the ability to manage and monitor everything remotely. Then yes. So, but that's up to you. So we just start at 20, and then you can dynamically scale that up and down, every month if you want to. And even if you do it mid-month, we'll prorate things and all of that. So it's very easy to change your subscriptions. Um, Here's a question. Is SSO supported? We are working on an SSO solution that will be at the Dante Director professional level, which we are currently in a private beta. We're working with a number of larger organizations to implement SSO well, and we will support SSO at that level. So it'll have to be at the professional level. At the professional level, we also support things like doing invoicing. So not everybody can do a credit card subscription. We totally understand. So if you're in an organization that needs an invoice, you can choose a pro plan, or you can contact us privately, and we'll try to see if we can work with you to get an invoice. And it's typically an invoice for a year. So we do have a number of customers that have done that already. Here's another question. Any plan to have diagnostic ability or troubleshooting checklists linked to error data? Example using AI. Dante Director suggests the next troubleshooting step. So yes, I'm hesitant to use the word AI, but we are obviously going to be improving the product as we move on and taking suggestions of what will be helpful. So we don't have any current things that are slated to use AI for that type of functionality, but we will be expanding the number of things that we will send you errors on. We will probably be building some reports that you can get on a, say a weekly basis that say, hey, these things are going on with your network right now. If you've missed these particular emails that we've been sending you about it, but yes, we'll do what we can to help you with that. I see that there's definitely an opportunity there for us to build in some AI. I don't see that currently as part of the product. So yeah, that's where that is. Let's see. Will older devices support this feature, or is it only for newer devices? This is supported by any Dante device. So you can enroll any Dante device into Dante Director. It does not matter how old the device is. Um, uh, we've seen all sorts of devices from all sorts of eras be logged in and managed by Dante Director. So if they have the ability to be enrolled into Dante Domain Manager, you may remember a number of years ago there was a big effort by manufacturers to ensure that they were supported with Dante Domain Manager. If they're supported there, they're going to be supported by Dante Director. That's one thing I will note is that under the underlying code base for Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager, they share a lot of the same uh, parts with underlying the entire thing. Um, and with that, when we're building new features with Dante Director, we're even getting Dante Domain Manager updated because of that as well. So you're seeing a lot of new, interesting updates to both products. Do you see any in the questions that you're interested in answering, Michael?
I mean, there's some. I need to look back through them again. There have been a couple questions about cost, which I think you answered already. Um, Demo. Did you talk about how to? Yeah, you did talk about people can actually start it. Yes.
Yes.
I think the rest of the questions that I've seen tend to be a bit more specific. I know there were a couple of questions about sharing audio between sites. That's not available at this particular moment. You can share them within obviously share within a site. So if the devices are in um, separate subnets, you can absolutely share audio between them. But if they're in separate sites, not currently. If that's something you need, that is available in Dante Domain Manager. So. Um,
Yeah, there are a number of it's so as I said, the Dante Domain Manager is the more feature robust product at this time. It does unfortunately come with a fairly high lift to do a trial, because you do need to be able to spin up your own hypervisor, deploy the software on that instance, and then get that up and running. So it's technically not as easy as Dante Director. So one of the reasons that we built this is because we wanted it to be easier for people to gain the benefits of management without the heavy lift of Dante Domain Manager. So now, if you're comfortable with Dante Domain Manager and getting it up and running, that's cool. There are also plenty of integrators that can help you with Dante Domain Manager. Now, Dante Director is something that we're selling directly, and we've made it easy enough for hopefully you to just get right into right away. one thing that I will note, as I brought up this page and it does have this notification here about Dante Controller, we are also updating Dante Controller in tandem with Dante Director. So one of the things that we've done with Dante Controller is that we've helped minimize the number of ports that it needs to connect to Dante Director on. It used to be a large number of ports for a variety of different needs, and now we've collapsed that down to just TCP 443 and UDP 5000. So it's just two ports now, and that also has benefits to your security posture. So you can say, hey, I only need to open up these two particular ports, and then I can monitor those ports for any anomalous activity if I need to, and even restrict it to director.dante.cloud because that's where everything's going to be coming from, and that's how things are going to communicate. Um, so I wanted to showcase a couple of things. One, this is getdante.com. You're probably aware of the site. If you want to sign up for a free trial, you just come over here and click sign up for free trial, and then it'll step you through the process. It's very easy to do. One thing that we have been talking quite a bit about is and now my user interface is getting in the way. How do I tab between the, there it is. Okay. If you want to compare Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager, we have a site up on the website that talks specifically about that, and it gives you a list of features. You know what Director requires, what Dante Domain Manager requires, the benefits of each of them, and what's going to be more robust. So, for example, between Director and Domain Manager, Director right now just has some simplified roles for user access. So you have the ability to access this site or that site, and that's about it. Within Domain Manager, it's a more robust product that's been around for a long time. We have advanced roles, so you can have site control, domain control, media control, read only, and you can expect that to expand within Dante Director within the coming months. We're also working on some clock settings within Dante Director as well. Right now, you have the ability to manage your ST2110 and AES67 implementations within Dante Domain Manager. We are breaking that out so you can do ST2110 maintenance within Dante Controller, but that's also going to be required to be deployed into the device firmwares. So that is coming soon for Brooklyn 3 devices. But right now, in order to do ST2110 and AES67 networks alongside Dante networks, you're going to need Dante Domain Manager, something that we will eventually be building into Director as well. So for this time, at this time, that's what you're looking at. So yes, there's comparisons there. And then as I mentioned earlier, if you want to be on that Dante Director page, you can scroll down and see that this is where you get that white paper. It's free. Just click read the white paper. I have already brought it up here, and you can see that it has a bunch of different information, and then it talks about this difference between unmanaged and managed, and then it gives you this handy little chart here, which I will make larger, that talks about the ports that are required and how the communication data works in between your network and the cloud and Dante Director. So as I said, it's TCP 443 as well as UDP 8000. Those are the ports that are required. So if you need to help someone understand what's going on with your network and the fact that you would like to use Dante Director, this is an easy way to do that.
This is probably a good play. We've had a couple of networking specific questions. Somebody was asking specifically about firewall. The firewall does need to allow those two ports out. I had a customer who enabled port 8000 for TCP outbound, and the devices couldn't enroll. Once they set it up for UDP outbound, it was fine. Jim, somebody was asking, does it need 443 doesn't need to come back in as far as I know, correct? And that's my understanding. It's only so you can communicate with the site itself.
That's outside of my knowledge area.
Okay. That is my understanding. So it's just that the devices need to be able to communicate out. I don't think there's anything calling back in, but that is a good question. There was also a couple of questions related to what happens when you move a device out. Say you've got a device and you're decommissioning it or you're pulling it out and moving it to somewhere else. You do want to unenroll it before you pull it out of the network. You don't necessarily have to do it there. You can do it somewhere as long as it can communicate with the cloud, but you want to unenroll the device so that way it can be enrolled somewhere else. There is a process called lonely reset. So if you have a device that's unenrolled and for some reason you can't unenroll it, you can go through the process, like I said, of lonely reset. And that's basically just connecting it and a computer on a network by themselves, and you can reset that device as need be. But it's really pretty straightforward. Let me share my screen again and I'll show you what it looks like. So again, if I pull up a device, go to the details page, down here at the very bottom, there's this unassigned device button. If I click that unassigned device, that will actually unenroll it from Director, and then it'll be available to be managed as a normal Dante device at that point.
All right. Let's go through the questions here. How do you log into Dante Controller if there is a cloud outage? Well, you don't. But as we did talk about earlier about how reliable this is, it's pretty easy to see how things are going. I can see if I can find a status. Let me find if you want to go to another question, I'll see if I can find the Dante Director status page.
Sure, I'm looking to see if there's a one. So somebody's asked, can Director and DDM work in tandem? No, it's one or your device will be in one or the other. Now you could theoretically have DDM local and Director for separate devices, but device will be in one or the other.
All right. Here's the status page. So it's status.director.dante.cloud, and this talks about how we're doing. So within the past 90 days, we've had 100% uptime. And then we have a list of incidents, of which there are none. So if you want to come and look, it's broken out into the web portal itself, the API connectivity, device management, and Dante controller access. So these are three separate services. So if we're having problem with one, like for example, the web portal has an issue, it's still not going to affect the API or device manager or controller. So we've had issues before. That's just what's happened. And the issues that we had happen were very, very, very early in the days of the service itself. But as you can see, within the past 90 days, 100% uptime, we're all good to go. There's a question about Dante for video. Do you want to take a second to talk about Dante for video, Michael?
Um, I saw the question. I don't remember
What's the latest?
what's yeah, I mean, I can talk about it just briefly. We still have I'm trying to think. You put me on the spot there, Jim.
Okay,
I
here
was
I
prepared
thought
to talk control, and now I gotta shift gears to talk about
so.
Dante.
I'll give the basic overview. So with Dante for video, we have multiple different flavors of video. We have a large number of manufacturers out there and growing. I believe that there are over 100 manufacturers that are out making devices now. So you're seeing more and more devices coming on the market. Most of them are using the flavor of video, which is Dante AV-H, which uses the H.264, H.265 codec. So that's going to be similar to an NDI kind of flavor of video. There are cameras, encoders, decoders from many different manufacturers. If you're interested in looking at the types of products that are available, I will show you. If you come over to products, Dante enabled products, you can bring up the entire list of products that are on getdante.com. Unfortunately, my connection at home here can be kind of slow to the Get Dante site for whatever reason. There it is. And then you can come in and browse all the different products in here. You can say, okay, what are the products that are Dante AV enabled? And then apply a filter, and then it'll show you everything that has been built. One of our new manufacturers is Turtle AV. They have quite a few boxes that are available, and then you can see things from a variety of others out here. AMX, of course. Marshall, 80 Techno, a variety of people make these types of products. So you're going to see Dante AVH as a very common implementation. Our highest quality version is Dante AV Ultra, which is 4K, 444, 60 frames a second, subframe latency, incredibly high quality. You'll find encoders and decoders out there that will connect to a standard legacy SDI feed that you can send over AV over IP, and it all fits within 750 megabytes per second. So it'll run on a standard 1 gigabit network. So you don't have to have a 10 gig network or 100 gig network to make video work. And you can run it quite well. And then you can also do fun things like multicast video over your network and send one signal to many different locations. Really, really handy. So that's what's the latest with Dante AV.
So I saw another question that you might want to handle, something like, around AES 67 and some of the more advanced functionality. Is that currently supported?
With Dante Director, no, we don't have the ability to manage that at a Dante Director level right now. That is something that is on the roadmap to be dealt with. So I would expect within the next 6 months or so, you could see something like that being added into Dante Director. Right now, those functions are built into Dante Domain Manager.
Okay. I'm still looking through some of the
It's
questions to see
question.
if
Do you still need DDM for PTP if your devices in different locations? Say 10 devices in New York and 10 devices in LA. So if you're talking about Dante over distance, that's something that is not technically a product, but if you're talking about Dante over distance, it's likely that you would need that. So if you have a dark fiber network that runs between New York and LA, and you can get the latency down to within 20 milliseconds, then you don't need to use Dante Domain Manager. If that's running, well, no, you would. If they're most likely going to be running on separate subnets, so yeah, you're going to have Dante Domain Manager in there. And if you stick Dante Domain Manager in there, then your latency will be able to be up to 40 milliseconds. So Dante Domain Manager operates as a bridge clock to help you keep everything in sync across those large distances. And people, sitting here thinking, is that just a crazy install? Can you actually do that? Yes, you can do that. We have many people who do run Dante over distance and do run it very successfully on dark fiber networks, and it works quite well. So if you want to do something like that, you can work with us, or we can work with an integrator to make sure that works. But Dante Domain Manager is great for that.
I have seen a couple of questions around enrolling devices and why they aren't necessarily seeing things. So I want to go back through Dante Controller again real quick, if I may.
Sure. And then I think this might be a good place to wrap it up. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. You can email me, jim.kidwell@audinate.com, and I'm happy to answer them there.
So, all right. So just related to that, again, when you fire up Dante Controller first, if you're not logged in, you don't see anything. You're only going to see the devices that are unmanaged. When you pull up a site, it's only then that you get to see it. And if you're not careful, you can actually be in this unmanaged state. This is the same thing as showing the devices when you're logged out. It's showing devices that are not actually currently enrolled in the system. So there's a chance that if you're trying to enroll something and you're not paying attention, if you don't select the site, you're not necessarily going to see the device because it'll disappear from the local and you have to actually be in the particular site that you've enrolled that into to see the device.
All right. Okay. Well, once again, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I hope that you had a good informative time here. Again, we will be sending out a recording of the webcast. Again, this is the pricing. It's $20 a month plus taxes from wherever you are. It's US dollars, so it's going to be converted in whatever local currency you may have if you're in another location. And then, standard comparison between Director and DDM. Director may not be the right thing for you if you need a if you need an air gap network, and DDM's just fine. So we don't have a preference, whatever works best in your situation. But we're hoping that you'll give Dante Director a try. Again, free trials are available now, and credit card will soon not be required. Getdante.com, come check it out. And once again, from Michael and I, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.